Hi friends, hope you're doing good. This is Tamur. Welcome to my channel, The Cloud Security Guy. And today is just a special video. I wanted to first of all thank you everyone. The course has been a great success. The course I recently released on Udemy on Zero Trust. So currently it stands around like 1,043 students, and it's one of the highest rated right now on the platform. So I would just wanted to thank you for that. And I wanted to preview the second lesson also for free on my YouTube channel. So if you want to take a look, and I'll be putting a free coupon. I still have a few free slots available for this class. If you want to take it, please do quickly take it because it runs up very quickly. Then I can't give it to you until the next month. So please do check this out. So this video is just a preview of the second lesson of this course. I've already uploaded the first lesson. You can check it out. So this is the second lesson, and in the comments and in the description, you can take a free voucher to take this course completely for free. Please do remember to leave a review and rating for this course if you liked it. Zero trust is a very important topic. That's the reason I made this course, so that people can learn about it and really learn from scratch. A lot of times you just have people who are promoting their products, vendors who are and not really talking about zero trust as a concept and how you can practically implement it using the NIST guidelines which have been released. So please do check this out, and make sure to take the voucher and leave me a review also for this course. Okay, I hope you enjoy the video, guys. Thank you. Hi friends. Okay, welcome to this lesson. And in this lesson, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the need for zero trust. Now, we have talked about this before in the previous lesson, why zero trust is needed, but I really wanted to do like a more detailed analysis, why we need zero trust. Now, the thing is, the threat landscape is like continuously changing, right? New and new attacks are coming out, more and more sophisticated threats are coming out, and basically, simply put, your traditional perimeter based security model, it's no longer sufficient to protect against these advanced type of attacks, right? And basically the controls you've put in, they no longer are able to defend, because the security, the enterprise architecture is changing, and the perimeter simply does not exist like it used to do before. So let's take a look at what we're talking about here, right? So zero trust, when you talk about zero trust, it's an attempt to address some of the weaknesses of what we call the more traditional security architecture. So let's describe that old security architecture first. There's like the older form, like we told, like I've written here, the good old days. Like old people, we talk about the good old days. So in a traditional security architecture, broadly speaking, you have like a hard perimeter defined by firewalls. Maybe you have a VPN for remote access. You might have a centralized authentication, like a single sign-on for Azure Active Directory, or some other product. But basically that identifies the user and it grants you access, right? So this is how it usually looks like. I mean, of course it won't be so basic because I've made this diagram deliberately broad. You will have, of course, subnets within this environment, right? You will have subnets, and you will have more firewalls within the network, but generally speaking, once an authenticated user is inside the security perimeter, they have very few controls placed on them because they're in like what you call a trusted zone. So now they may access file servers, they may connect to other nodes within the network, they use services and so on. And like I said, I mean, enterprises are not stupid. There are security people there, and they have been aware of the shortcomings of this approach for quite some time, right? So there will be parameters within the network, right? Parameters within parameters, and you will probably re-authenticate. What do you call? You will put your more sensitive servers within a more private subnet like that, and you might have multi-factor authentication. But overall, the general rule is it's hard on the outside and soft on the inside, and that has remained pretty much the norm for the past, like I would say, 20 years or so. I would say. But yeah, it's usually described as a walled garden. So the walls are supposed to keep the bad people out, but inside you're free to do whatever you want, right? Whatever we might picture this, there are several downsides, of course, you can imagine, right? The main downside is what? If an attacker can get through the perimeter, usually they have pretty much unrestricted access to explore, right? I'm not saying they'll become the admin, but they can do lateral movement, they can attack machines inside the perimeter, and they can, of course, attempt to elevate their privileges without that much chance of being detected. And usually there's little attention paid to the behavior of an individual authenticated identity. A user is authenticated, they may do things that are pretty much out of character and they might not get detected. You have products coming in which can behavioral products which are there, but generally the overall lack of granular access control, it allows the users, you might be malicious, you might not be malicious, to allow access data and services they don't have a need to. When you move to, especially when you move to a cloud or a hybrid maybe like a BYOD, a remote working, partners, all these things coming up. So this is what I wanted to talk about. Sorry, as you got more and more complex, a typical enterprise's infrastructure has become more and more complex, unfortunately. Nowadays, because of all the trends which are coming out, a single enterprise, you might have multiple networks, multiple branches. You might have bought companies which have their own networks. You might have remote offices. You might have remote or mobile individuals. You might have cloud services, infrastructure as a service, software as a service. This complexity has outstripped the legacy method of perimeter based network security, because there is no single or easily identifiable perimeter for the enterprise. And perimeter based network security is, it's also insufficient, because once the attacker breaches the perimeter, like I said, your lateral movement is pretty much unstopped. You can pretty much move around and try to find, and if you're a good hacker, you won't be able to, you won't trip up any security alarms. Okay. And of course, so this is how today the landscape, this is how much it looks. You have your internal network, and you have remote users, cloud services, you have infrastructure services, you have BYOD, basically increased remote work. Let's take a look at these trends. You have increased and more remote work. With the growing trend of remote work, distributed teams, you need like a security model that can adapt to different environments, right? And that can protect data regardless of the user's location. And of course, you have cloud adoption. So companies are increasingly adopting more and more cloud, right? And the traditional perimeter goes away. So zero trust will provide a framework to protect data and applications in the cloud regardless of your location. BYOD, many organizations are allowing companies to bring their own personal devices for work, and of course that brings additional security risks also. So zero trust will help to mitigate these risks by enforcing policies and security policies and access control based on the user's device and context. And of course, zero insider threats, right? Not all the threats are coming from external. Insider threats can pose a significant risk, and zero trust help to minimize the risks by applying least privilege access onto the network, onto the architecture itself. So users only have access to the resources they need within the network itself. Usually least privilege is done on the database level or the application level or the server level, but not within the network architecture itself. And you know uh, a lot of regulatory requirements also come out. They say you need to have this type of models which are there, and we'll talk about this more in the next lesson. And of course, better visibility and control within this network, it becomes very difficult to have that visibility. So zero trust provides you that visibility and into the user behavior and the overall posture, and this allows you to get more, allows to detect and respond to security threats more effectively. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about. Zero Trust will be a framework here for securing your infrastructure and data for today's modern digital transformations, right? All these challenges which are coming out, you have to secure remote workers, hybrid cloud, ransomware, God knows what. All of these things the Zero Trust can help you mitigate it. Okay. And why the perimeter fills? Just a very simple, you might be saying, no, no, I have like multiple subnets and everything, right? And even though the perimeter model is still very good, I'm not saying it's like gone. It is the most popular model by far. The way we rely on it is flawed, right? Complex attacks and within networks, and they happen every day, right? Attacker can drop like a social engineer a person within the network and get remote access and start moving laterally. And the perimeter firewalls are good, but they will not stop these things. And even if you have a firewall, there are always exception, right? You have firewall exceptions, and these exceptions are tightly controlled, but your web developer might want SSH access, read only SSH access to the production, or maybe your business users might need access to the HR's the database to run some queries, right? Your machine learning data scientists might need access. And what happens? You configure these firewall exceptions, permitting traffic from that individual IP address to the particular server, right? And what happens? So the more exceptions are created, the more pathways are created, right? And these are very static exceptions like source and destination and allow this IP, right? So what happens if you're like a what do you call an attacker, and you want to try to compromise this environment? You might try to attack the application layer directly, right? And once you're there, you might have because of those open firewall ports, you will have a direct pathway. Or you might be smart, you might simply try to social engineer the people who have access, like the HR, like the database admin, give them malicious links, send them phishing emails, and one of them might be gullible enough to click on the link, allowing the attacker to install malware. The malware will then provide the attacker with the session, on the now compromised employee's machine. Now you might say, no, 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 the access is very restricted. Okay, so the access is restricted, but he might be able to laterally move within that production server until he seizes somewhere he can compromise, right? So when you carefully examine it, guys, you see that it's very obvious that this network perimeter model is not enough. Bypassing is very easy with malware, with zero-day attacks and firewalls. Firewalls that you have between the subnets or the zones, they consider nothing more, maybe your source and destination when making these decisions. And while parameters still provide you value in network security, you cannot rely them as the main control by which you are looking at your network security stance. So the first search will be, okay, what do you do now? And so what can you do now? Because this is all these problems are coming with the trust which users are giving, right? So this is where zero trust comes in, and it helps to stop this sort of attacks, these sort of lateral movements, by implementing several key principles and controls. And we'll talk about most of it is least privilege, right? You will grant within the network, users will only have the minimum level access. So even if an attacker was to compromise, it will really limit his ability to move laterally, because gaining access to one account or that does not automatically grant him access to other sensitive resources. And we'll talk about it more, but something called micro segmentation. In a zero trust architecture, networks are divided into smaller segments, each with its own set of access controls and security policy. This segmentation makes it very difficult for an attacker to move laterally within the network, as they must bypass multiple security barriers, right? And you have context aware controls. So zero trust will take into account a lot of context, where the user is coming from, what is his role, what is his destination, and all that, right? So this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about. So what are the key takeaways of this lesson? Traditional network parameter is not enough, and modern trends are changing how users are accessing networks. And attackers can easily compromise the perimeter and move laterally, move internally to other networks, right? And this is where zero trust comes in. Now, in the next lesson, we'll talk about zero trust and first a history, how the zero trust model has evolved. It hasn't come in a vacuum, right? It hasn't suddenly appeared out of nowhere. There's been an evolution and a gradually increasing importance of this model. So this is what we'll talk about. I hope you've appreciated now why zero trust is so important. So let's move on to the next lesson. Thank you.